Hi, and welcome to First Integrity Mortgage Services Chit Chat with Cindy Ballman. I know I can usually finance your home, but one thing I can't tell you about is home safety. And that's why I've invited Matt Coppin, Captain Matt Coppin, with the Metro West Fire Protection District to come and speak with us today. Matt, so happy that you could join
Yeah,
me.
thanks for inviting me.
And please give us your full title, if
Sure.
you
My
would.
name is Matt Coppin. I'm the captain of External Affairs and Community Health with the Metro West Fire Protection District.
Again, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah,
I would have jumbled that up
it's just fine.
immediately.
I'm a firefighter paramedic. That's what you
Okay.
need to know.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that, we really want to talk about is safety in the home. And I think the biggest things we were talking about, just the top three things that are data proven that you said to save lives in your home. Why don't you tell us about those?
Sure. So a lot of people come to us with questions regarding maybe like a rope ladder out their second story window or a fire blanket and those types of things. And while those can be effective, there's really not a lot of statistical data to back those up. But there are three things which are proven, and there's strong data that support that. And so that's having working smoke alarms in your home. That's sleeping with your doors closed at night, and that's practicing fire drills at home, much like you did or would do with your kids at school.
Okay. And I know we talked about, those home drills. I'm like, what is an appropriate age to start that with your family? Is there an age that's too young or too old?
No, I don't. So for me personally, I think if your kid is 4 years old, they're right there and they're able to learn and accept what you're teaching them, right? So what I found with kids is when you teach them about disasters and emergency, it doesn't frighten them; it empowers them. It gives them something to do, some knowledge to pull from when it actually happens. So my own personal story, and again, as a firefighter paramedic, we were maybe a little aggressive when it came to home fire drills and doing those types
Yeah.
of things. But I've got two kids, and my son was still in a crib, so that puts my daughter right at that 3 or 4 year old range. And the smoke alarm went off in the middle of the night. So my plan with my wife is that she goes and gets the kids, and I go and find out what's on fire. So she heads down the hall, she grabs my son out of the crib, and she goes to open my daughter's door, and she meets resistance, right? And then she finally gets the door open, and my daughter Anna is on the floor behind the door, and she says, "Anna, what are you doing?" And she says, "Well, Mom, I'm feeling the door for heat." So in the middle of the night at 3 in the morning, the alarm goes off, and Anna, without thinking, knows to get out of the bed, crawl to the door, feel the door for heat, and then yell and connect with mom or whoever. So she was going through that process as a 3 or 4 year old because we had practiced that, right? And so
Right.
there wasn't any panic or any concern about what do I do in the middle of the night. She knew what to do, and so she was just doing that. So that was just an experience that I had personally to show that it truly does work.
That's amazing. I mean, again, like you said, I mean, you have personal experience to draw from, and that she was that smart to just kind of go, "No, I'm just doing what I was
Right.
told to do."
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're right. They're like sponges.
They are.
They
Yeah.
they do absorb all
Yeah.
of that information.
That's right.
And we mentioned the sleeping with the doors closed. What do you tell families? I mean, especially families with younger children. I know we always kind of had the door cracked or
Sure.
open because you're just
Sure.
like you're listening for that cry out in the
Right.
middle of the night.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what is your recommendation for people who
Yeah,
have
no,
that
I
resistance?
I definitely understand that concern, and
Mhm.
and so one of the things we did as a family was we would leave the door open until we went to bed, and then we would close the door, right? So,
Mhm.
I think when you've got baby monitors, I mean, I remember playing cards at the neighbor's house and being able to listen to my kids in our room. So that technology has improved as well. But what's really important to know is the simple standard interior door that sometimes is made of layers of cardboard or light wood material can keep back an excessive, a significant amount of fire.
Okay.
So just having that door shut, there's a lot of panic, I think, or fear in new homeowners or new parents that there's going to be a fire right in that hallway and they're not going to be able to go down and get to their children,
Yeah.
or when they do, they can't get out. And how do but just knowing that door will hold back fire for an extended period of time. I mean, it's really great. The Fire Safety Research Institute has done a lot of training on that and a lot of actual like building homes and labs And there's some fantastic videos out there to watch. We've even at Metro West done demonstrations in a parking lot where we build a room and divide it in half and close the door, and we'll light a fire on one side, and we can just watch how much fires on one side, and then on the other side of that drywall and that door, there's hardly anything. We're talking the difference of temperatures, 200 degrees on one side and 80 degrees on the other side. So it's quite significant.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, whatever concern about not hearing your child, I think there's ways to get around that with those monitors. But it just pays dividends to be able to have that in that case. But again, you won't get to that level if you've got working smoke detectors, which might be where we're headed.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, and again, like you said, typically your fire's probably not starting in your hallway unless it's maybe electrical. Where do most of your fires come from, and which, in your experience, what do you guys service the most?
Yeah. So generally, if you're going to get hurt or if fires are going to start in your home, it's going to happen in the kitchen. That's just where we have heat. We've got open flames on a lot of stoves. That's where people spend a lot of their time is in the kitchen. So statistically, that's where we see fire. We see, unfortunately, we still see people leaving candles unattended when they leave the house. So that's something we often see. And then there's a variety of electrical things that can happen as well. So plugging in too many devices into an outlet, using a extension cord improperly, those things can lead to overheating outlets.
Yeah. So let's talk about those smoke detectors.
Sure.
Because I know I will be honest, I'm like, my son lives in a loft apartment that is like 15 to 20 feet up in the air.
Tall ceilings, yeah.
And trying to change that battery was insane. And
Right.
again, for people who aren't firemen, who don't like to be on heights.
Sure.
I mean, what do you advise people if they maybe have a high ceiling where they just can't access that? Are there
Yeah.
other ways to get around that?
No, absolutely. So, high ceilings, if you have, to me, it's just a part of owning a home, right? So, maybe you're not comfortable on the roof cleaning out the gutters, but you would hire somebody to do that. Maybe you're not comfortable changing the light bulbs in your 2-story foyer in front of your house. You would hire somebody to do that. The same with those smoke detectors, right? I mean, fire departments are there to help those who can't do it. So we would never leave a home unprotected if there's an elderly couple or somebody that's not able to get up there and do it. But we're not staffed to be able to go and change everybody's smoke detectors, right? So that's a responsibility of the homeowner, but it's such an important responsibility that I think a lot of people overlook.
Absolutely. And just checking them, you guys recommend how often should you check your batteries
Yeah,
and
so
change them out?
yeah, we used to say change your batteries when the clocks move forward and fall back, but that's not really the case anymore. So we recommend checking your batteries twice a year, and that means pushing the button and making sure it sounds. Many homes now, by code, they have to be interconnected. So if you're asleep on your second floor of the house and there's a fire in the basement, all the smoke detectors will go off at one time, right? So to make sure, so you can test to make sure that they all go off. There's smoke detectors now that have batteries that can last 10 years. And so there are 10-year batteries that need to be checked and replaced after 10 years. And generally we say if you have any smoke alarm, smoke detector, carbon monoxide alarm after 10 years, they need to be replaced.
Okay.
Yeah, you're just at that point.
I'm going to be looking into the
Yeah.
10-year one.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and even if you have an older home where the code was such where the fire alarms weren't required to be interconnected, there's technology now that you can get at your home improvement store where they're interconnected via Bluetooth. So you don't have to run wires through your house, but they'll still all sound,
Yeah.
if one goes off.
Everything is Bluetooth.
Yeah.
There's an app for that.
There is an
right?
app. There probably is. There probably is.
And then I know the other big thing too, and this was something I didn't even think of until you mentioned it to me. When I was a kid, I'm not going to date myself too
Yeah.
much, but I mean, there was a wall phone and
Sure.
I had to turn the numbers all the
Yeah.
way around. A lot of people don't have a house phone anymore, so you
Right.
have to use your cell phone. A lot of people have that security feature. Oh, you got to have Face ID or you got to know the code. How do you instruct families with maybe younger children to
Mhm.
I guess, do you just have to sit them down and teach them how to do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So, growing up in the great 1980s, like you said, there was always a phone in every kitchen that I was associated with, and you could pick it up. You didn't need the passcode. You didn't need a lock screen. three numbers later, sometimes on the rotary dial, you would be talking to somebody who can help. But that's not the case. I don't have a home phone. Many of the
Mhm.
people that we talk with in the community, they don't have a landline home phone. So as a society, as educators, as fire officials, as teachers, we need to go a little step further than just teaching kids to call 911. So we do a great job of going into kindergarten, preschools, and we tell the kids, what number do you call an emergency? They all yell 911. That's great. But if they don't know how to get that phone and dial that number, it's useless. So, and parents say, well, the reason I have a lock on my phone is so my kid doesn't get in there and mess up my apps and whatnot. There are ways around that, right? So every cell phone you can call 911 without having to access past that lock, whether that's a face lock or the code, right? So
Mhm.
it's just another step to learn and teach kids how to do that, right? And as adults, if you don't know how to do that, there's a YouTube video out there with a 14-year-old who's willing to teach you how to do it. It's super easy.
Yeah.
And it's just important. So when I talk to parents or even when I talk to kids, I tell them that in an emergency, the rules change. Okay. So we've been on calls where it's 5 o'clock and dad gets home from work and mom is unresponsive in the bed. And the kid said, well, she wouldn't wake up from her nap. And you told me never go outside, unless it was okay. And so the
Mhm.
kid just sat there while mom was unresponsive until dad came home. So we've got to tell our kids that, hey, in an emergency, the rules change. It's okay to go outside to a neighbor's house to get help. It's okay to flag down a car driving down the road if you need help. If grandma doesn't wake up, it's okay to cut her pocket to get the phone out if that's the only phone in the house to make those
Mhm.
phone calls. So, and again, it's not meant to frighten kids. And if anything, it
It
empowers them,
empowers
right?
them,
It
right.
gives them options for when they're in these situations.
Okay. And is it true that if you don't have a landline, but you have a phone connected to a landline that you could still dial 911? Do you know if that's
So
true or not?
I don't know about a phone connected to a landline, but even a dead cell phone, if you will, a cell phone
That
that
doesn't have
doesn't have
service. Okay.
AT&T or Verizon or whoever service, you can still call 911 from that phone. So for a
Really?
lot of for a lot of families, that's a great option. Is you have this old cell phone that you could turn in and get $50 toward a new one or something. Or maybe we just keep that on the counter and that's our emergency phone, right?
That's
And that's something
amazing.
we
Yeah,
can
I didn't
use.
that was something else that I did not
Yeah, for
know.
sure,
So
for sure.
that's really
Yeah,
good to
and your
know.
cell phone provider can help you with that, but no, that's very true that a dead cell phone or a cell phone not connected to service can still call out for
Okay.
911.
And I appreciate you saying I grew up in the '80s. That makes me
Yeah,
feel
no, I
good.
was right there with you. It was great.
Might be a little older than that. Um, how often do you recommend people conduct a fire drill?
I don't know if there's a set time, and it may be very dependent upon your family, right?
Uh-huh.
And so, at least in my family, the kids would ask for it because it became a fun thing where we pretend they're sleeping in bed and we sound the smoke alarm, and
Ah,
then
okay.
they go through the process. And then maybe one time I say, "Hey, listen, you can't go down the steps because there's a fire down there." Now, what do you do? So you're kind of engaging them at their level as they get older. So yeah, visiting that once a year, and as you do that, you may not have to go through the whole process as they get older. Maybe it's a simple conversation while you're driving around in the car and say, hey, let's
Yeah.
just review what we would do. And that's a great way to kind of stay engaged with those types of things.
Matt, thank you so much for joining me today. I really think this was good, informative information. Is there any other information you maybe want to share with folks?
No, I just, as a closing comment, I just think it's never too soon to talk to your kids about what to do in an emergency. It actually provides benefit to them, comfort to them, kind of connects your family as to what to do in an emergency. And that's ultimately what saves lives is that preparedness part of an emergency.
Again, Matt, thank you so much for joining us from Metro West Fire Protection District. And we appreciate your time.
Thank you.